What's up, Chuckers? Producer Mike here. This is Served 5-Setter, your weekly roundup of all things racket sports, 5 stories in 10 minutes or less. But before we get into it, please hit subscribe on YouTube and give us a follow on your favorite podcast platform so you can stay up to date on all things served. We really appreciate it and love the support. That said, today is May 8th, 2026, and here's what we've got for you. Razorbacks answer the calling, brackets and race cars for Italy, the Met Gala tennis edition, and Stan books his last dance. But first up, we're starting in Rome, where the loudest pre-tournament press conference in years had nothing to do with the main draw. Quick refresher for the Chuckers who were under a tennis rock this week. Project Redeye is apparently the working name for the coordinated push from the top players to get a real seat at the table at the 4 Grand Slams. Prize money, revenue share, scheduling, player welfare is all on the docket. This isn't the first that we are hearing of this. News broke last spring that a letter went to all 4 majors, a letter signed by roughly 20 of the biggest names on both tours. Now fast forward to this week, and many of those same names, including Sinner, Alcaraz, Sabalenka, Gauff, and Swiatek, signed off on a formal statement hammering Roland Garros for announcing its 2026 prize money with no player consultation. The statement's message is direct. Lift the player share of Slam revenue from roughly 15% to 22%. Add Grand Slam contributions to player welfare like pensions and maternity, and put a real consultation mechanism in place. On Tuesday, players took to the mics for their pressers ahead of the Italian Open, and world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka dropped this nugget.
Do you think players would ever threaten to boycott and not play tournaments?
I think at some point we'll boycott it, yeah. I feel like that's going to be the only way to kind of like fight for our rights.
The mention of a slam boycott caused quite a stir amongst the reporters, and following players were asked of her comments. Here's what Coco, Gauff, and Jannik Sinner had to say.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of agree with that. Just taking what the WNBA kind of accomplished with the kind of, I mean, they also have like a union, so I think that helps. But I definitely think from my not experience, because I don't have a lot of life experiences, but from the things that I've seen with other sports, usually to make massive progress and things like this, it takes a union.
It's more about respect, you know. It's because I think we give much more than what we are getting back, and it's not only for the top players, it's for all of us players.
However, not all the stars seem to be on the same page regarding boycott. Iga had this to say when asked about the possibility of it.
I think we have like pretty clear and similar vision. But, boycotting the tournament, it's a bit, extreme kind of situation.
We will obviously keep track of these developments and see if there's any immediate influence over Wimbledon and the US Open this year. Stay tuned. Now on to set number 2. Let's get you another update on a story that we have been following for a few weeks now in the college tennis ranks. Last month, the University of Arkansas announced it was discontinuing both the men's and women's tennis programs at the end of the 2026 spring season, becoming the first school from a major sports conference to do so. The school's athletic department cited the need to reallocate roughly $2.5 million in the annual operating expenses, and they found it in the tennis program. And frankly, the alumni did not love that. Former head coach Robert Cox, who led the program from 1987 until 2013, had this to say a few weeks ago after Arkansas announced the tennis program cut.
We had 71 years of men's tennis here, and it's just a huge insult. 46 years of women's tennis to not even ask us for help. We would have been there, and it would have come.
And guess what? He was not wrong. The alumni has stepped up in a big way. According to Andrew Hutchinson, managing editor at the Best of Arkansas Sports, Arkansas tennis alumni and supporters have now raised approximately $5 million in a matter of days to save the program. Yes, $5 million, and what people are saying, roughly 72 hours. That is twice the amount the school said it needed to cut. So is the program officially saved? We'll continue to update this story as it unfolds. All right, set number 3 is a fun one with some crazy coincidences. Last week, Jannik Sinner won the Madrid Open. A few hours later on the same day, the Italian 19-year-old Mercedes Formula One driver Kimi Antonelli won the Miami Grand Prix. Two Italians, one Sunday, two of the biggest trophies in their respective sports. When Antonelli took the podium after the Miami Grand Prix, he shouted out Sinner directly. First, dedicating his victory to the late Alex Zanardi, and then to Jannik Sinner, on what Italian media is calling a historic day for Italian sport. Now, one time is a coincidence, but it just keeps happening. 3 times this season. When Sinner won Indian Wells, Antonelli won the Chinese Grand Prix. When Sinner won Miami, Antonelli won the Japanese Grand Prix. Now, before you get ahead of yourself, no, there's no F1 race while Rome is going on. However, the sports schedule gods have shined upon us. The F1 Monaco Grand Prix lands on the same day as the French Open men's final. So the reality of the situation is if Sinner wins in Paris and Antonelli is on the podium in Monaco, who is hosting the yacht party and can I be invited? Now for set number 4, and it takes us to the pinnacle of red carpets. Yes, that's right. The 2026 Met Gala happened on Monday night, and tennis was once again everywhere. Megan covered this in Tuesday's newsletter, and if you haven't read that yet, shame on you. But here are the headlines from the carpet. Among the list of high-level athletes in attendance, of course, beyond my buddy Joe Burrow, were 3 of tennis' biggest stars, including Venus and Serena and Naomi Osaka. Here is Met Gala co-chair and Wimbledon champion Venus Williams breaking down what her jewelry represented.
You look, you can see that my mom and my dad are also on this plate. The plate represents the Venus Rosewater dish, which is the name of the Wimbledon trophy. And this plate is also, this is basically my portrait, the National Portrait Gallery. So it's really recreated here in great detail.
Obviously, I know a ton about fashion, so clearly I can say that Naomi Osaka's look was a showstopper. Here's what she had to say about its transformation.
So I would say it was like a shedding of the skin. Like the first layer was the skin and you could see like little bits of like blood coming out, and then I took it off and that was, the human anatomy.
Now get this, Naomi walked the Met Gala carpet on Monday night in New York City and then immediately traded it in for the Eternal City, flying straight to Rome, where she is in the main draw of the Italian Open on Friday. Not to be left out of the fashion talk, Sabalenka has a new kit, which she showed off on IG this week. Megan has a full breakdown of that for you in the newsletter. And for the final story, this one is for everyone who grew up watching a one-handed backhander from Switzerland. Well, one of the one-handed backhanders from Switzerland. Stan Wawrinka is retiring on home soil, closing the books in Basel. The Swiss indoor tournament just locked it in with a tribute night on October 26th, putting it plainly, quote, Basel marks the end of the line for Stan Wawrinka. Stan has a few more headlining events left in the 2026 season, including Roland Garros, where he won in 2015, and Geneva, where he held the trophy twice. I don't know about you, but I am rooting for his last hurrah to end with a championship. And side note, he has never won in Basel. Now, Stan isn't the only one retiring this year. The 2026 farewell class keeps growing, with the latest addition being Kai Nishikori. The 36-year-old former world number 4 is the first Japanese man to reach a Grand Slam singles final, doing so at the US Open in 2014, and he won a bronze medal in the 2016 Olympic Games. And now let's head to our tiebreak trivia, and we are going back to college. Arkansas belongs to the SEC, or Southeastern Conference, for the 40% of our audience who isn't American, has produced many top college programs. Which SEC school has won the most NCAA Division I men's tennis championships? We'll have the answer for you in this week's 5-setter newsletter, plus more stories that didn't make it into this episode, including a story where we see a showdown between the oldest ranked ATP player versus the youngest ranked ATP player. Of course, this is happening in Florida and is a 15-year-old versus a 45-year-old. To sign up, head to servedpodcast.com or find us on Substack. Remember to hit subscribe on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. As always, thank you to Techie Sean and the Serve team, newsletter Megan. We will see you chuckers on Tuesday.